Okay, so as Jackie mentioned earlier, we are the Olive Branch of Hope. We are a cancer support service, and we are based in Toronto. We don't work in a silo. We have many partners that we work with to help us effectively reach our community. Some of our partners are Women's College Hospital, Pink Pearl Canada that works out of Niagara Falls. We are also partnering with Dr. Juliet Daniel at McMaster University. She's a professor, an acting associate dean of research and external relations. And as you can tell, we are also partnering with Sister Sister. Our value statements and who we are. The Olive Branch of Hope is a nonprofit, volunteer-driven charitable organization. We were founded in 2001 by breast cancer survivors to provide support and promote awareness of breast cancer in women with a particular focus on women of African ancestry. Sharing and caring is our theme. We believe that no woman should feel alone when diagnosed with cancer. We not only serve women that's had cancer, but any woman that come to us in distress, whether it be from cancer or any other non-communicable disease, we are here for her as well. We exist to lovingly promote breast cancer awareness among women of African ancestry and to give hope and support for the mind, body, and spirit to those who are newly diagnosed. Our vision is to be the leading, let me see if I can switch this around and read this properly. To be the leading support center for women of African ancestry across the diaspora. Who do we serve? We serve all women diagnosed with cancer, primary focus. I said this already, but I'll just repeat it. Women of African ancestry in the GTA, Peel region, Hamilton region, and we also do telecare for women in Nova Scotia and the Caribbean. This map helps us to understand our reach, where we came from. From Africa, we see all these streams going to the West Indies, well, I should say the Caribbean and some parts of South America. So tonight is our second session in this special presentation, Finding a Healthy Balance, which is done by our wonderful, wonderful guest speaker, Lauriane Denal. So for those of you that were not here last time, Lauriane holds an honors Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from York University and a certificate of bereavement education from the University of Toronto. Laurie is a certified life strategist, a sought after speaker and writer who also leads a mentorship program, Growing Women for Young Adults. Laurie is a daughter, a sister, a wife, and a stepmother. And I would ask everyone to just sit back and enjoy these sessions. They are coming to you knowing that the times that we are living in are very, very stressful. They're difficult for a lot of people. And we are doing our best to help serve the community. Most of us that belong to various faith organizations, churches, and so on, we don't usually reach out into the community to tap into resources. So we bring resources in our community that we are connected with. So thank you again for being here. And Lauriane, it's over to you.
Right. Thank you so much, Miss Leela. Once again, very happy to be with you all this evening. I want to thank very much the Olive Branch of Hope and Leela Springer and Sister Connection and Jacqueline Cupid Wood for this opportunity to speak with you all tonight. So we're having conversations, my friends, about finding a healthy balance during COVID-19. This has been going on for most of us here in North America for the past year, and the end is not yet in sight. And so what we want to do is through these seminars, arm you with strategies and coping mechanisms so that you can maximize this moment. There's no reason for us to be operating in panic and being unprepared. We want to be a people who are poised and ready for whatever is coming our way. And so we all know that COVID-19, tonight our topic is really about financial fitness. We want to get well in money matters, because at the end of the day, money is what kind of makes our world go round, right? We're all working to earn a living so that we can take care of ourselves and our families and leave a legacy for the generation to come. And so it behooves us to know all that we can about money so we can steward it wisely. So that being said, we know that COVID-19 has changed life as we knew it. Everything that we thought was normal now is a little bit different. Restrictions on movements and gatherings really cause life to lock down. One of my mentors always says to me, I want us to change our mentality from thinking about being locked down to being locked in. Think of it as COVID-19 has actually afforded us some opportunities to lock in, to slow down, to be present, to take stock and inventory about what's happening in and around us so that now we can come out of this situation better equipped. And so I encourage you tonight, even just begin thinking differently about the language that we're using while we're in the midst of a pandemic. Think about using words that are going to inspire you to feel empowered rather than feeling powerless. So we know that many industries have been negatively impacted by COVID-19, from retailers to movie theaters to the travel and hotel industry. And some of these industries have shut down altogether and have not seen a resurgence. We've seen that many moderate and even large-sized corporations, they've found ways in this season to continue to shift their operations for their employees to work from home. And that's become the new standard in order for productivity to be maintained. And I'm sure many of you are in the limbo, in the flux of those types of arrangements with your employers, working from home, having to now set up a home office. For a certain segment of society, COVID-19 has caused underemployment, if not full out unemployment. Some people have had to deal with layoffs in this season. And that has become commonplace. And we know for those of us here in Ontario, Canada, the government has made certain efforts where we've seen there's been like this. We could just have everybody mute their mics. Thank you so much. Yes, and so there was the CERB funding that was given to individuals that were laid off of work so that people would be able to keep up with their expenses. And we know for our friends in the US, there were different stimulus packages that were given out. Different things were done. Small business loans the government gave. And so all of us were scrambling, including the government, to try to find ways to stay afloat financially. And so we know that as the numbers continue to be impacted, we're seeing the COVID numbers that continue to rise. There's talk of variants coming here to North America, and vaccinations have not yet become widespread. We're still very much living in a time of uncertainty. But just because it's uncertain doesn't mean that we need to be unprepared. If anything, COVID-19 has taught us many lessons. And one of which is, chief of all, is that we have to remain flexible. We need to be vigilant. Keep our eyes open and be aware of what's happening around us so that we can adequately prepare ourselves for the unthinkable. And although that's true in every area of our life, how much more so is it pressing in the area of our finances? What the pandemic has ultimately revealed is that far too many of us were living a hand-to-mouth existence, literally a paycheck or two away from complete and utter devastation. No more, my friends. We got to get our things in order. Get our things in order so that any sort of disaster won't knock you out of the game. And so while we're sitting here in the midst of this global crisis, and we've already lived through a lot of this ebb and flow of what this so-called new normal is, rather than us giving way to hopelessness, we want to make the most of this season by getting our ducks in a row so that we can take care of ourselves and our families and have peace of mind, but better yet, a game plan that will help us to play this game of life better. And so I'm going to share my screen with you as I'm presenting. Oh, if the host, please, could give me screen sharing ability, that would be great. And let me know when that is. But in the meantime, let's talk about planning for your future. This is an opportune season for you to ensure that you are properly insured. Check your insurance policies. You want to be able, thank you so much. You want to be able to make sure, let's get this here set up for you guys. Thank you. Thanks. Okay. So you want to make sure that in this season, you are taking time to review all of your policies and the coverage that you have. So if you have life insurance or mortgage insurance, these things are critical. You want to see what is the fine print actually in these policies? Do I have sufficient coverage that if something was to happen to me or my loved ones, that there's provision that's been set aside, Are you staying on top of your premiums? Because this is a season where you don't want to lapse with something as important as insurance. You want to make sure everything's up to date. Are the beneficiaries correct on your documentation? You want to make sure that you also know your loved one's wishes. And if you are a parent or you have a spouse, you want to make sure that you guys are having these conversations so that there is clarity about what the other person wants in the event that they're not able to speak for themselves or that they have left this earth. This is also a great time, and I know we don't love talking about this, but it needs to be talked about, to look into pre-planning. And by that, I mean pre-planning and prepaying for your end of life arrangements. So whether you're deciding upon burial or cremation, if anything, COVID-19 has taught us that life is fleeting. Life is short and it is precious. And we want to be people that are properly prepared, that we're anticipating these known expenses that you're going to have for end of life. So you want to be able to put resources aside so that your family isn't placed in a position where we have to scramble now to do a GoFundMe to pay for expenses that we all should be anticipating and making arrangements for. And so you want to save towards these arrangements. But this is an opportune season. Contact a funeral home, have an agent come and speak with you and begin to talk about exploring your options. When you see the price tag on these things, it's going to be astounding. You're talking about tens of thousands of dollars, but better now for you and your family to begin paying into these things so that you're prepared, whether or not you're leaving this earth this year or 25 years from now. You want to have those things in order. And so Dave Ramsey, a famous financial guru, is known for Financial Peace University. And so he runs a program that is really just trying to help people come away from the brink of despair as it relates to their finances and get some tools in their toolkit. And so he talks very passionately about budgeting and making sure that you're doing a zero balance budget, which means you are allocating and assigning every dollar that comes in. It has a destination. You don't just let it flow out and don't know where it's going. And so here it is, he's saying, a budget is telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. Because truth be told, so many times we're just living our life by the seat of our pants. So we're just kind of on autopilot, taking care of what we think we're taking care of. And meanwhile, things are going awry. So here it is. We're going to talk about some budgeting 101, just getting some basics down. And I know we're all in different places with our money management, but this is really to speak to a wide audience. Some of us, the basics we haven't even established, and some of us are at a more advanced level, but hopefully today throughout this presentation there's a little bit of something for everyone. So let's talk about budgeting 101. We have to track all of our spending. Now, I know that sounds really elementary, but there are some of us where we go shopping, we come home and we just throw away the receipts, and there's no rhyme or reason to like how much you are actually disposing of your income. You only are able to address and track that which you are monitoring. So you want to track all of your spending. That means you're going to keep and you're going to review all of your receipts. That means you are going to enter all of this data into some sort of spreadsheet or tracking system software so that you have a visual record of where your money is actually going. Because remember, we can only change that which we're paying attention to. So you want to get these firm numbers in place so that you really know what you're working with. Because we always tend to think we're doing a lot better than we are until you see the actual tracking. So sometimes we're thinking, oh, okay, I'm only spending $500 a month on groceries. And then you actually take the next 30 days and track it and you say, oh my goodness, we're actually spending $750. So that means your budget is not what you think it is. So you got to rework the numbers for what is realistic for you and your family. You want to create an emergency fund. Some also call it a contingency plan. And by that, this should be at a minimum 3 to 6 months worth of your household expenses. So you see how we go back to step 1 here, making your budget and tracking your spending. So you should know how much your energy, your water, your light, your mortgage or your rent, your car insurance, your life insurance, you should have all of those numbers down. You should know exactly, right down to a dollar figure of how much money it costs to run your household, all of your basic living expenses, your cable, your cell phone bill, all of those things on a monthly basis. Now, when you have that number, you can now begin to plot out what is the number for this emergency contingency plan. It needs to be 3 to 6 months of those expenses, or at a very minimum, you should have an account or some money put aside that's at least a minimum of $10,000. which is easily accessible, because it's called an emergency for a reason. Generally, there's an urgency to it, that this is money that needs to be liquid, that you can put your hands on. So this is not something that's tied up in investments that you're going to have to go have a meeting with a bank manager in order to have access to it. This is either cash that you have in your house, or it is in an account where you can just go to a bank machine and pull this thing out, or somewhere where at least you're bearing some interest on it, something that is readily accessible. And ultimately, if you've ever had to borrow from an emergency fund, so the fact of the matter is, you're only going to be touching this thing for major emergencies. Pipe bursts in your house, like look at what happened to our people in Texas. And now, if you weren't properly insured for these things, you got repairs to do, you've got renovations to do, you've got wet flooring that needs to be pulled up. That's an emergency that you could have never planned for. You're going to pull from your emergency fund to deal with that, so that crises that come don't break you. And that's how COVID has felt for many of us, is that this crisis came out of nowhere, stopped life as we knew it, and now I've been obliterated financially. We want to make sure that whatever is coming next in society, we are prepared for it. So whether COVID wants to persist, God forbid, for the next 6 months or 12 months, you have put some things in order that you are not going to be set back. And if something else is coming, 1 year, 5 years down the road, you're saying, I learned too much during COVID-19 to get caught again. So you're going to do things differently. So you want to have this fund that if you have to borrow from it, you make sure you get back into replenishing it. You want to get it back up to that number, whatever that goal number is for you, 3 to 6 months of your household expenses. You also want to create a freedom account. And by that, I mean, this is something that's going to cover intermittent, irregular, yet predictable expenses. So these are things like, you have car repairs, or let's say you don't have coverage at work, but you need to do dental and eye care, or you have daycare expenses, or your children have extracurricular activities that you always enroll them in. So these might be things that you're not necessarily paying every single month, but they come up several times a year. Get the numbers for those things so that you can plot this whole thing out. You can even put these miscellaneous things in there that are important to you, that maybe us ladies, some of us, you want to get your hair done and you have a relationship with your hairdresser where you go once a month, or you get your nails done every 2 weeks. Do the number crunching. If you want to make that a part of your life, then do the number crunching of what does it cost for me to live my life in this kind of a way. And then now when you divide that by 12, that shows you that on a monthly basis, this is how much money I need to be putting in this pot, because these expenses are coming up later in the year. So you might decide, you know what, I spend about $500 a year in car maintenance. You want to put aside that $500. So when you go to the mechanic and you get the bill, you're not saying, I got to go put this on a credit card. No, I knew car repairs were coming because that's just part of maintenance of having a vehicle. I put the resources aside already. So with that freedom account, it's not like a savings account. This is something where you're going to be drawing from it. But once you have your numbers intact, like the emergency fund, you will also be replenishing it, because those expenses are coming back around again next year. So you want to consider jumpstarting this account. For both accounts, you might think to yourself, Lorianne, I don't even know where to start. I don't have any money saved. I don't have anything put aside. I don't even know where I would get this money. I hear you say $10,000 and I'm clutching my pearls saying, how do I even amass that kind of wealth? You start bit by bit. Think about using your financial windfall. So tax season is upon us. Maybe you have an income tax refund that is coming to you. Maybe you have an inheritance that is coming to you. Maybe somebody owed you for an old debt and they're paying you off. This is a time where when you receive a lump sum like $1,000, $2,000, don't even think about spending it. Put that thing aside. If you don't have either one of these accounts already going for you, you want to put that money aside to get a jump start on building it. And then begin to give yourself a reasonable goal on a monthly basis to put aside resources to build that bank. Make it like your top priority. I got to have an emergency fund. I have to have it, because anything can happen at any given moment. And you want to remember, I think if anything COVID has taught us is that we have got to live beneath our means. So many of us were living close to the brink. You get your paycheck, you spend the whole thing, you pay your bills, you do a couple of nice things for yourself. And before you know it, you are broke again, hungry and waiting for the next 2 weeks or next week when your employer is going to drop some money in your account. You want to live beneath your means. With all of the closures, many of us have had to do without things like the luxuries of getting our hair and nails done, or going out to fancy dinners with friends or our spouses. And what you've realized is that even though this was thrust upon you, you can do without it. And so it now begins to give you an idea of those resources that I used to be able to find to do these things in this season. While I'm not able to do these things, or while I'm choosing not to do these things, let me put these funds aside. So it's a good time for us to think about those things. So for the purpose of this presentation, I spoke to different financial professionals in different fields, so I could give you guys a well-rounded talk about finances beyond the scope of what I could even just do of my own volition. And so I spoke to a friend of mine who's a mortgage broker, and here it is. This is the advice that he had to share with me. So I was asking about the trends that people have been seeing during this time. And what he shared with me is that during COVID-19, some of the things that he's seen has been people are looking to invest in unique vehicles. So this is aside from the mutual funds that oftentimes like a bank manager would talk to you about and say, oh, I want you to have this diversified portfolio. This is a time where people are calling people like mortgage brokers and saying, what other avenues and vehicles can I use to invest resources? Because I want us to keep top of mind as well, that as much as COVID-19 has been an interruption and an unpleasant one for many of us, and has created some level of uncertainty financially for many of us, on the flip side, there are many people, and I dare to believe that it's actually the majority, a lot of things have remained the same. If you've maintained your job during COVID-19, consider yourself doubly blessed. And so a lot of things have remained the same. And if anything, your expenses have gone down because you're no longer commuting for many. You're not eating out as much. You're cooking more at home. And so what's happening here is your rate of pay has remained the same, but your expenses and your expenditures has gone down. And then there are people on the flip side who are thriving during this time, where COVID-19 has been an opportunity. And we're going to talk about that more towards the end of this presentation, to pivot and get into other avenues that has been lucrative for them in this season. So I'm going to be sharing from both vantage points, not just from the it's been hard and challenging, but also about, for those of you where you're looking at your assets and your resources that you have right now, how can you make moves skillfully in this season to optimize your position so you're even better prepared for what's coming down the road. He also said that he's seeing an uptick in people inquiring about reverse mortgages. And I found that to be fascinating because here it is in this season. He was saying that reverse mortgages are basically, for those of you who don't know, are targeted towards those who are 55 years old and up, whose homes are paid off. And basically, it's an opportunity for you to work out this arrangement with this lender to be able to get up to $350,000 of your home's value. And what people are often doing with these resources is they're accessing this type of advance either to address some pressing, urgent matters. So whether they've had some serious debts or they've had some health concerns where there's a need now for additional support or care. But people are also using these reverse mortgages as a way of helping their children and grandchildren with purchasing their own homes or for their schooling needs. So it is an option that people are looking into in this season where it seems that money is short for some. People are looking now at the equity in their homes and saying, how can I leverage this to help either myself or those who are connected to me? And you can choose to either take a reverse mortgage as a lump sum or as a monthly stipend that's going to be paid out to you, let's say over the course of the next 20 years. So it's a way of kind of paying yourself. And there are no payments due until either you pass away, and then it's your children's problem, or until you or your children decide that you'd like to sell the home. And then the arrangement then kicks in with the repayment plan. But he's saying that there's an uptick in people inquiring about that. He also recommended during this season that, that emergency fund that I just finished telling you guys about, saying, okay, have 3 to 6 months worth of your household expenses put aside so that you're ready for anything. He's saying, if anything, COVID has taught us, you need more than that. Look to do 6 to 12 months. Because you see, folks, if we hadn't lived here in Ontario and had access to CERB, for those of us who ended up completely out of work and had the blessing now of a couple $1,000s coming to you every month, so let's say that program didn't exist. And the reality is that for those of us right now, as this thing has persisted, CERB is finished. CERB was finished from like last fall. So for those people who have remained out of work, the fact of the matter is, what are you doing? What have you been doing? That's why we need to have even more resources saved up. So he's saying, move towards doing 6 to 12 months. But I started off with 3 to 6 just to not make it scary for y'all. Let's at least get it built. And once you hit your number, keep building it, so that this is a good nest egg that you're sitting on here, so you're ready for come what may. He also said during this season, people are looking at like refinancing their homes to pay their debts. So let's say you're in a situation where you have some high interest credit cards and you're able to now go in and go have a conversation with your bank and say, I want to refinance my mortgage, get access now to a line of credit so that I can pay off these debts. And then now this has just been added on to my mortgage and I can continue on with those payments. And so this is a good time to have those types of conversations with your bank. He also advised that during this season, don't wait for the sale. It is still a good time to buy real estate because it is always a good move to go into home ownership, right? So you don't want to wait out the market because here it is, everybody's thinking, oh, it's going to drop eventually, it's going to get better. And it's a potentially dangerous game because conditions can actually worsen beyond our current circumstances. So you might think housing is crazy expensive right now. It may just continue to rise and to surge. And furthermore, the interest rate right now is exceptionally low. It's at 1.4 to about 1.7%. And so it's a favorable time to get a mortgage and you'll feel like you're getting more bang for your buck because you're going to qualify for more. The only time that you need to be waiting for sale on a home is if you're in the business of flipping homes because you're looking to make a quick profit. And this is also an opportune season to think about if you're living far away from your workplace and you were required to commute, consider renting out your home and then renting a place to live that's closer to your workplace. Ultimately, it's almost like one hand will wash the other. Now somebody's living in your home, paying your mortgage for you, and hopefully you're able to find a place that's got a low rent level that at least now is cutting down on that commute time, that time that you were losing, the expenses of the gas, that sort of thing. And so those are some of the trends that are happening from a mortgage broker's perspective. So let's talk now about what's happening in the real estate market, which is connected right next to this. So it is a seller's market. So sellers, if you've been contemplating it, it is time to get ready to sell. Prices are at an all-time high. And you know what happened? People are thinking during 2020 with COVID-19 happening that a crash is imminent. They keep thinking the world is going haywire, things are nuts, people are out of work, and this thing is all just going to come to a grinding halt. But basically, you guys, you don't want the real estate market to crash because it means that the economy is going to crash. So here it is, this crash that we were all waiting for, hoping to snag an inexpensive home, it didn't happen. If anything, prices are higher than they've ever been before on houses. And so if you're a seller, it is a great season for you to command a good rate for your home and expect to get it, even exceed it. But I caution you, buyer beware. Bidding wars is the norm of this day. So you got to be prepared if you're going in to buy in this season that you're going to have to deal with that. And that means that your offer needs to be competitive and compelling. Things are no longer going for asking price. And even still, there is a practice that's kind of sneaky that's happening right now in the real estate industry where a lot of seller agents are deliberately undervaluing, underlisting the home. And so what happens is that it generates a lot of interest for a home, which automatically creates competition. And so unfortunately with the bidding wars, you can expect to spend anywhere from 10 up to 100,000 more than the listing price because of this practice. And so things are very cutthroat right now. So it's a seller's market, but not necessarily favorable for those who are looking to buy. And so you have to just kind of brace yourself for that which is happening. Also, prepare to live outside of the GTA. Right now, it's really popular for people to move to the outskirt townships because you're getting better bang for your buck. You might be able to get a larger home for less money because we all know that in GTA, like in Toronto proper, $1 million is the average, even for a small home deep in the city that looks like the electricity's not even been updated in it. Those houses are still going for $1 million. So begin thinking, not the old outskirts of like, oh, I'm going to go move to Markham or Pickering. You got to go further. So people are moving to like on the west side, they're going to like Cambridge and Kitchener. People are going north, looking at Barrie, which is now booming. And even for the east, people are moving out to Clarington, going to the farthest end of Durham region. So these are becoming popular destinations. Why? People are tired of Toronto traffic, tired of the long commutes and spending all of this money. People are also tired of the $1 million home norm. And they're saying, can I get a house for $500,000 anymore? You got to move further out. And also with now a significant portion of the workforce working from home, the commute doesn't matter anymore because you're not negatively impacted by now living in a small town if you're no longer required to drive into the city to go to work. So there's a lot of good reasons to look for a nice home outside of the traditional GTA. In the rental market right now, it's a good time to buy a condo because lease prices are down and there's a high volume of vacancies. Now, this has happened as a result of COVID-19 because many condo owners were using their properties as for rental purposes like Airbnb. And that has been curtailed because of the pandemic. So it's created a little bit of an imbalance there in the condo market. So it is a good season to look at those prices, which haven't surged quite as much as housing has. But be cautious of selling your home and moving to a rental property, hoping to wait out this high price season, because this tactic can ultimately backfire because prices can continue to skyrocket. So you can go ahead and do whatever you want to do, but just know you got to move skillfully with your eye continually on the market to the changing conditions. But do take advantage of the lower interest rates that are now available because they allow you to qualify more easily, and they also allow you to borrow more. But prepare yourself to have at least a minimum of a 5% down payment for first-time home buyers and to have a strong credit score of at least 680. So these are the ways in which you're going to poise and position yourself better to operate this current real estate market. So for those who are thinking about home ownership or selling their home in this season, first and foremost, you want to talk to your bank to find out what you qualify for. You want to see what your borrowing potential is. Then after you've had that conversation with your bank, that is when you will now enlist the services and the help of a realtor to begin looking now for affordable areas that match your budget. Be prepared as well in this season to move quickly because of the bidding war situation. And I can attest even from my personal life experience, not during COVID, but during a season several years ago where bidding wars was really the thing that was happening, is that you lose time because if you bid on several homes and you keep losing the bids, weeks go by. And meanwhile, your house in a seller's market sells quickly. So your home is sold and you're trying to buy something, and that's where the trouble is running in. So you could lose several weeks trying to actually get a successful bid in. So ultimately, when you finally do land upon something, you might have less than 60 days till closing. So be prepared that you have your things in order, that you are like mentally, but also physically prepared to take on that move quickly. And lastly, you want to consider being open to buying a fixer-upper. Now, I'm not talking about those TV shows where you have to gut a house. I'm saying if you're getting tired of the bidding wars or you want to pick something that's a little bit less competitive, this was also an option that my husband and I looked at when it came time for us. When we were dealing with the bidding wars, we were like, how do we go off the beaten path? Pick a home that needs a little bit of loving care so you can personalize it. So consider things like an older neighborhood or an older home. Consider something that carries a lower listing price because it's going to need a little bit of light renovations. Maybe the kitchen needs to be updated. Maybe the house has carpet throughout it. Maybe the bathrooms need to be updated. Things that are not going to break the bank for you, but ultimately might mean a difference of $5, $10, $15, $20,000 less on the listing price because you're going to have to now put some work in on the back end. So that's some of painting a picture there for you of some of the trends that are happening during COVID-19 and beyond in the real estate market. So now let's look at, what did a financial advisor have to share with me about this time? Ultimately, you want to develop a plan, the kind of plan that clearly marks out the vision that you have for your life and your objectives. Once you've figured out what is the life that you see yourself living, what are my long-term goals, what are my short-term goals? Once you've gotten all that stuff down with paper, whether it's you by yourself or it's you and your family or you and your spouse, and you get these things down on paper, attach a price tag to this life that you're envisioning for yourself. After you've now developed this plan, you want to invest in yourself. And by that, I mean, this is a great season, friends, during COVID-19 to learn the language of money. Trust me, it is its own language. It has its own vernacular, and we have to become adept in it if we want to survive and thrive in these financial times. So how are you going to level up your language and financial literacy? Through reading books, by identifying what money areas you need and want to become more knowledgeable in. You want to spend time around those people who have expertise in financial matters. Because if you don't know, now is the time to get to know. You want to level up your understanding. Maybe you don't know anything about stocks and bonds and investing. Maybe you don't know anything about refinancing a mortgage or doing this reverse mortgage. You don't understand how different savings accounts work or different programs that your bank has to offer. This is the time to get educated. This pause that COVID-19 has afforded us in some areas of our lives, use this as a season to get educated. You also want to be financially aware. You want to conduct a personal financial inventory that lists out your assets, your liabilities, your debts, and you want to have a proper understanding of interest rates, your work benefits that you have. Some of us have things built into our work contracts that we haven't even gone through the fine print. I'm not just talking about your massage credit and your eye care credit. There's things in there where sometimes there's top-up plans. Sometimes there's RSP contributions and there's matching plans. Get an understanding of those things. In all you're getting, get an understanding. This is the time for it. And you ultimately, as part of that financial awareness, as we talked about from the beginning, you want to make a budget and actually adhere to it. Stick to it. Live by it like it's a rule and a law. So here it is. You also want to build a team. I want you to think about when you're managing your money for your household, think about money management as a team sport, and you want to recruit the absolute best people for your team. So you need to get into the business of asking for help when you need it. You're not too proud to inquire, right? Because we're trying to get an understanding. So I want you to draft your money team players. If you don't already have these people in your phone book on speed dial, I encourage you, get these people in your lineup. Do your research, talk to friends. Hey, do you have a financial planner? Do you have an insurance agent? Who are you with? Talk to people. I know we say in culture, it's taboo to talk to people about money. You didn't ask the person how much they made. You're asking them, who are you working with? Do you have somebody you can recommend? Can I get a referral? You need to have good people on your team who have your best interest at heart. If you're working with somebody and you don't believe that they're looking out for you and they're getting you all the breaks that you need, move on, get somebody else. You can change up things. So you want to have a financial advisor, somebody who's giving you plans, somebody who's talking to you about options, different vehicles, timing, what is good for you given your age, your profession, your salary level, your earning potential. You want somebody who's got a good grasp of current market trends. You want an insurance advisor. You want somebody who's counseling you on, do you have a good policy and does it cover everything that you need? Do you want these people that you have relationship with? You want to have an accountant, whether you're a small business owner or it's just for even your personal finances, somebody who's looking things over for you, doing an audit for you, examining where the profit and loss is happening in your life. You want to have a lawyer, whether it's a real estate lawyer or just a lawyer you need to call on in a time of jam. God forbid any of us would ever get sued in this lifetime, but you want to have somebody on your side. Lawyers help you with things like drawing up your wills, making sure that you have power of attorney. You want to have a reputable lawyer on your team. You want to have a real estate broker, people who are talking to you now about private lending. Sometimes you don't need to go with the big bank. Sometimes a private lending route is a better avenue for you, given your own credit history or your financial means that you're coming to the table with. And then ultimately you have your bank that you're dealing with. So you have a relationship with somebody there at the bank who is able to walk you through what's happening with your accounts that you have there, what's happening with your mortgage that is held there at the bank. You need to build a good team, and having these people that work in tandem ensures that you're covered on all sides. You also, in this season, because as I said, we're not just talking about people who are in dire straits during COVID-19, but also people who have money to spare. And so this is an opportune season to invest in others. You want to invest in the markets, in organizations, and in people. So for those of you who are a little bit more savvy and you're ready to level up, this is when you want to now call on your financial advisor and say, let's talk about stocks and bonds and mutual funds. Maybe you're having that conversation with your banker. ETF, exchange traded funds. You want to invest in the markets and see what is moving. How many of us wish we invested in Amazon 10 years ago? Who would have known? When you think about this season here, there are certain industries that are thriving while people are struggling. Amazon is one of those ones that's making billions and billions of dollars because of how much society is relying upon them because of the current conditions. So we want to be able to jump on things that are going to pay us in the future. You also want to invest in organizations. So whether that is church or faith-based groups or nonprofit organizations, people who are doing good work in society and around the globe. Hope. This is how you invest your time, and you're putting your money where your mouth is. So causes and things that you value and that you prioritize in your life, put your money into people who are doing that good work. It's a good time to look for charitable causes that you can partner with. And at the end of the day, there's tax breaks for you even in doing so. So it's a win-win. It's also a good time to invest in people. You want to be paying attention, especially if you're in a season where things have been steady. And if anything good for you, you want to pay attention to your loved ones, your friends and your family. Some people are really struggling in this season and they really could use some assistance. You want to invest in the lives of other people. And that's not always just financial. Sometimes even in conjunction with the financial, it could be advice. It could be encouragement. It could be connections, networking. It could be resources of a different kind. And so this is a season where we can be looking around for opportunities for us to invest our resources wisely and also be a blessing to other people. So as we wrap up here, I wanted to just talk about some final tips here that are specific to COVID-19 and these times that we find ourselves living in. So because income tax season for those of us here in North America is upon us, I want you to consider talking to your accountant or your income tax preparer about writing off expenses for those of you who have small businesses, but also for those of you who have been working from home this past year and have had to create home offices and spending money now on toner and paper and had to get an ergonomic chair and a new desk. Think about talking to your accountant or income tax preparer about writing off those expenses that are related to working from home. Really want to have good relations with these people where you don't just hand over your T4 and your charitable slips to them and your RSP stuff and then just have them just do it without having a conversation with you. You want to have relationships with people to talk about, are you really working for my best interest? All of the little loopholes and tax breaks that I'm actually eligible for, are you working on my behalf to make sure that I'm getting those things? So you want to have a relationship with the person that you're working with. If you're going to be working from home indefinitely and you now drive your car significantly less, it is a good time to call your insurance provider and let them know about the changes in your transportation patterns to see if you can negotiate a lower rate. Sometimes in life, we have not because we ask not. We're not daring to have the hard conversations, the uncomfortable conversations. It's not about being cheap. Guys, we're trying to live beneath our means, not beyond. So here it is. If there's areas where we can shave off and trim some of the fat, why don't we? If you are in credit card debt, this is a good season as well. Call your creditors and explain to them your current situation. If you're under any sort of financial strain, if hours have been cut at work and you're not making as much as you used to, let them know what's going on with you. They would respect that better than you not meeting your minimum payments or missing payments altogether. And have a conversation with them about seeing if your interest rates can be lowered. I'm telling you from experience of talking to other people, almost always they agree. If you've been in good standing and you're now having a conversation with them that is proactive, not after months and months and months of delaying paying, but having a conversation with them as proactive, ultimately things will work in your favor where things can be done for you. But we don't know this because people don't share that information. This is also a great season to let your creative juices flow. And by that, I mean, I call it Corona creativity. It has led many people to launch out entrepreneurially in this season. Perhaps you had a side hustle or you had hobbies or things that you were always good at or that you were thinking about doing, that during this season of COVID-19, you've now had the opportunity to say, you know what, I am knitting hats for babies at the hospital, or I'm, putting my wares on Etsy, or I'm able now to launch out my business, or I'm doing a blog, or all of these different types of things. Something that was a side hustle now can be elevated to becoming a multiple stream of income for you. And you want to have multiple streams of income, different things that you do that are bringing in resources into your household and into your life. Why? Because COVID has taught us that you cannot rely on having all of your eggs in one basket. Some of us worked at companies for years that in a blink of an eye, those companies closed and you were laid off and you were out in the cold. And so if anything, this season has taught you not only that you should work for yourself, but that you should have multiple things on the go. Whatever your hands find to do it and do it well, but do it now. So this is a time now where you're wanting to cultivate several different streams of income. For some people, maybe you own real estate. Make sure that you've got renters in those homes. That's income that's coming into you while you sleep. You want to be able to just Make use of all of these different areas that are coming for you. Look for opportunities as well. You could be watching the news or you're watching television shows and ideas are coming to you where you see a need in society and you now have solutions for those ideas. Maybe this is a season where you invent something, you innovate something. Look at the different industries that have prospered during COVID-19. It's still not too late to get involved in those industries. You look at paper, plastic, and signage solutions. Those companies are booming. They have more work than they know what to do with. Printing companies that have had to make all this COVID signage and arrows on the floor in your grocery stores. Those companies are booming. Think along those lines, these types of ideas. People who make plexiglass. Do you know how much business they got in 2020? Because now all of a sudden, every company needed partitions that were clear glass. Look for those opportunities. Look at the trends that have been happening in online retail sales, grocery delivery services, things that are like Amazon, courier services. You want to be able to say, how can I get involved in that? How can I spearhead something like that? How can I jump into that stream? This is also a great time for you to think about what you want to do with your future, to guarantee that you can be COVID and recession proof in the future. So it's a good time maybe to go back to school, do a training program, invest in developing new skills so that you are better prepared and adequately equipped to take on new ventures if need be. And I don't want you to believe the negative hype that there aren't jobs available during COVID-19. Not so, my friend. Many companies are still very much hiring during this time. Some companies are experiencing a hiring freeze, but there are others, including the government, that are avidly looking for candidates during this time. So keep your resume up to date and continue to apply for positions. I know personally family members and friends who got new jobs, better paying jobs during COVID-19. Headhunters were looking for you. And so know that if you set yourself up and you stay ready, that opportunities will come your way. So I want to just highlight really quickly those who helped me to even put this presentation together. And so if you have your cameras with you, if you need to screenshot the information, I wanted to tell you about David Rod. He's from Limitless Solutions Financial Group. And he says that if you mention that you were in attendance tonight for this seminar, you will get a complimentary strategy session with him to talk about your finances, as well as a free digital copy of his book, House Rich, Cash Poor, No More. And so this is David Rod, who is a mortgage broker based in Peel Region. I wanted to also feature Rochelle Brissett. She is a commercial and residential real estate agent who is Coldwell Banker Realty in Motion. And she is also based here in the GTA. For those of you who are looking for a realtor, whether for residential or commercial needs, she can assist you. And I also spoke with Anthony Burke of Legacy Capital Group. They help people to build generational wealth. And they are also based here in the Greater Toronto area. So ultimately, my friends, there is still time to get prepared in the midst of this pandemic. And I want you to start today. I hope you receive some sort of nuggets tonight, some sort of gem, some sort of aha moment of when I leave from here, I'm going to do things a little differently because my life depends on it. My financial security and future depends on it. And so I want you to be wise and build your financial house on a firm foundation so that when the rains come and the floods come and the winds blow to beat down on it, you will stand firm because your foundation is rock solid. I want you to stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Have a good night. Thank you.